Hey everybody, this is the Wrestling Dreamer here, and we're going to be doing a review for AEW All Out 2021. And yes, I know it's a bit late. It's because I wanted to not make a reactionary statement to the show itself. Because during the night, it was such an emotional night. I was such a heightened sense that any take I may have given probably wouldn't have been accurate to how I actually felt about it because I was so hyped up. So after a day, rewatching the show, seeing other people's takes on it a little bit, but mostly just rewatching the show and being able to see it from a different perspective, a less heightened sense of emotion, I've come to a different conclusion, and I've settled on a different conclusion to AEW All Out. And my conclusion is that I see a lot of people online claiming that this was a perfect show or an almost perfect show, that it was AEW's best show. And I will have to say that that is probably recency bias because this was not a perfect show. And this was not AEW's best show. And we are going to see why this wasn't perfect, but why it was really good. And one reason why it was really good is because it had a really, really good opener. That is the TV Championship, Miro versus Eddie Kingston. And someone in the Chicago crowd had a redeem these nuts sign, which is something I pop for really big. Now these guys on Rampage were having a really compelling story, and really drawing me in to what they were doing, because Eddie Kingston and Miro aren't like everybody on the AEW roster. They're not like everybody in professional wrestling today. They have a different look. They're bigger guys, but they can talk on the mic really well. They can tell a story on the mic. They could tell a story in the ring. Eddie Kingston just has this natural charisma that really connects with the fans. And Miro is just, it exudes this radiance of just cockiness. But he also has a charisma that naturally radiates to fans, and depending on how he spins it, he can, both of these men could work both sides of the spectrum. And you see them playing off of each other in the ring. Now, this is a two big guys, two bully guys beating the crap out of each other. There's there comes a point where they're hitting each other so hard that Miro's chest just looks like ground beef. It looks absolutely insane. And so the physicality of this match and the story that they were telling inside the ring, which was Eddie Kingston just not, having so much fight, and you know, capitalizing on that neck and just attacking, and trying not to let Miro, completely dominate him, which is what Miro is known for, dominating all of his opponents. So the fact that Miro wasn't able to completely dominate him threw him off of his game, and the end came when the referee was distracted because the turnbuckle pad came loose. So the referee was trying to put it back on, and Eddie Kingston tried to make the 3 count. Miro kicked out because the ref wasn't paying attention. And then a little bit later, Eddie Kingston tries to slam Miro's head into the exposed turnbuckle, and the ref tries to stop him. Doesn't see the low blow. High kick. 1, 2, 3. Miro retains. And I don't mind the finish too much because I feel like it's just going to set up another match between these two and give me more of it. I give this match 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a great way to start the match. It was hot. The crowd was hot for it. And it really just started all out with a bang. And these guys are doing good money together. Now, the next match, not so much. It was kind of the same, of that very physical style, with Jon Moxley and Sotisha Kojima. Satoshi Kojima. And these men, they really did go hard in the paint. They beat the crap out of each other, but there was no heat to it. There was no build to it. There was no match to it. And so I just wasn't invested at all into this match. And not only that, from sometimes a dream match, it doesn't have to be great on paper, but it can be great on execution. And I think that this match also faltered in execution because while Jon Moxley did his best to garner heat during the match, something just wasn't clicking. Something just wasn't flowing right. It was decent, but they never hit into that next gear. And I feel like it was somebody's dream match, but it wasn't mine. And they didn't draw me in like they really wanted to. Especially with the similarities between the last match and just how much heads and shoulders better the last match was than this one. So two paradigm shifts later, Moxley wins, and after that they have Suzuki-san, Ishii, come out, and now this to me is a big deal. While Kojima is one thing, and he is a legend, no doubt. The first person to hold the New Japan Pro Wrestling title and the All Japan title at the same time. But Ishii is a monster, and he's a monster now. He completely destroys people. If you would have given me this match, I know that Moxley and Ishii would have built it. They wouldn't need to have heat for it because they could build it easily in the ring, and that's what they did after this segment. They beat the crap out of each other after this match, with Ishii just completely destroying Jon Moxley, and then they're gonna have a match at AEW Dynamite, which I'm going to, and I'm super excited for. So I give this match 2.5 out of 5 stars because it was almost the same as Miro versus Kingston, but it just didn't hit those notes for me at all. So 3 stars out of 5. After that was Dr. Britt Baker versus Chris Statlander. And as anyone knows that watched my previous show, I was really worried about this match going into it because of, Chris Statlander not being the best in the ring, not being very smooth. And now we could talk all day about, okay, these previous two matches with these men, potatoing each other, really going in on each other, being stiff, and we could talk about that. But is there a double standard between women? They're stiff. That how they work. No, the difference is you can be snug and be safe, and on the opposite side of that, you can be sloppy and botchy, and it can look fake, and it could also look very dangerous. So, this wasn't the worst Chris Statlander match because she has Dr. Britt Baker in there with her, who is very, very smooth. But there were still some moments where I was waiting with bated breath, where I had to, I gasped and just waited, watching Chris Botchlander in the ring, and she lost this match. Thank God, because she needs to be far away from the title picture. She needs to be far away from the best thing in women's division in AEW, and one of the best things going in women's wrestling, period, which is Britt Baker. She needs to be far away from these things. This match was botchy. It wasn't great. I give it 2 stars out of 5. The right person won, obviously, and for the most part, Britt Baker carried it to a decent match. After that was Andrade El Idolo with a nothing promo saying he's going to fight Pac on Rampage. Now, this is the interesting thing, is that, was he ever a star? We're looking at it now. He's not in WWE anymore. He's not under their umbrella, and he still can't seem to make it happen. Is it AEW's fault because they have a bloated roster? They put him to the back burner. They're getting too many guys, or did he never have it to begin with? What I really thought was funny was that he claimed travel issues of why he couldn't wrestle Pac tonight. But what I really believe happened is that elite business was played, politics was played backstage, and the Young Bucks came up and said, "Hey, brother, we need to go an extra 15-20 minutes because we gotta get all of our shit in. So you sit on down. You guys can wrestle on Friday night, whatever, but we're taking it now." And that rolled into the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers for the AEW Tag Team Championships in the Steel Cage. And I recently watched their ladder match from a couple years ago, and it was really good. It's really good. So these teams have a lot of chemistry together. Um, but it's really good in a spotty kind of way because you have to know going into a Young Bucks match that these two don't know anything about in ring psychology. They really don't know how to build a match. They don't know how to build upon a match, how to garner heat, how to save moments. And usually that's a bigger problem. But in this time, in this moment, in this show, it wasn't an issue because it was the first one, and it was really the only one of these types of matches on the show. And it gave a shot to the arm into the show, which was needed at this time. And they really they really tore it up. Unfortunately, as I was saying, when it comes to the building of a match, when it comes to the in-ring psychology, when it comes to doing these moves and then getting 2 counts from them and then having to do more moves, and then you're building up, and then when the finale actually comes, it doesn't go over like it should because you built up the anticipation too high. So the Bucks come out with this thumbtack shoe with thumbtacks on it. They start kicking super kicks in the face with thumbtacks. They do a Canadian destroyer off the top rope, and then they're still smacking him in the face with thumbtack on their shoe. So you think, oh man, these people are dead, but they keep kicking out. And then the ending comes when Ray Phoenix, who I love Ray Phoenix, but he climbs to the top, and all three guys are just kind of, sitting there in the ring with their thumbs up their butts, as they do. And it's one of those spots, and he jumps off, and then they hit him with like their signature tag team move, and then it's over. Um, and that's what I don't really like, is because all these really, really big moves, and it only gets 2 counts. So when the 3 count happens, it's not really believable. You didn't build up to it. You blew your wad early, and then it's still trying to soft stroke, and it doesn't work for me. It really doesn't. You know, I do like it though. The right guys won, um, and for the most part, you know, they did a great job. But there's just some things about a Young Bucks match that just takes me out of it. And but I give it 3.5 out of 5. It was really good in its own way, but the potential is there. They wouldn't have just done so much ridiculous things. After that was the women's casino battle royale. Uh, and I gotta tell you this, like AEW needs to figure out a way to get the presentation of these things better. When you want to present people as stars, they need to be presented as stars, and it starts from small things like the entrance music, like the cameras. When Jay Cargill comes out and she gets a massive pop, but her entrance isn't treated any more or less than Savannah, Savannah, Georgia from Savannah, Georgia. I think that's a big problem. Thunder Rosa, Ty Conti, these people that come out and yet they're not really shown. You want to put them over a certain way, you have to. It starts from the beginning. It starts from square one. It starts from things like the entrance. Now, like as I said, Jay Cargill comes out, she gets a massive pop, which is great, but she and I thought she was gonna win, but she ends up getting eliminated by Nia Rose, which is good. In a way, it's like I can't be too upset about it because I was talking about how much money they're gonna make together. I can't be mad that they are going to that well, and saving Jay a little bit for the main event. She's always gonna be there, and the belt's gonna be there. Now, when it came down to the final two, after the Joker, the mystery opponent, which turned out to be Ruby Soho, not Ruby Riot, JR, Ruby Soho. So Ruby Soho comes out, and it's her and Thunder Rosa as the final two. And I'm looking at it, and I want Thunder Rosa to win because I think that there's more there with her and Britt Baker, and I think pushing people. This is where you start getting maybe a negative view when you start pushing people to the top too soon when they come from another company. Um, all in all, especially like all in all, though, the crowd by the end of it was into Ruby Soho. She was doing her thing, and I can't be too upset. Um, Dr. Britt Baker does need new challenges, new patience, I should say, for her to put the lockjaw into. And I give this 2.5. It was a pretty average battle royale. So after that was something that was not average, which is the build to MJF versus Jericho in their final fight. These guys, it's so funny. Like when you build a story and you have two characters and they're clearly defined, how much the crowd can really be behind it. And to be honest, it had one of the most insane spots of the night, which was the Heat Seeker onto the apron for for the 9 count. But it was slow in a way that built on their previous matches and really built up to what you would think would be a satisfying crescendo, but it it didn't, you know. Um it didn't build up into a satisfying crescendo. It started off weak on Jericho's part because MJF comes out to this brilliant trolling entrance for Y2J. It has the countdown. You think that Jericho's going to come out to break the walls down, and it turns out to be MJF. Perfectly trolling everybody. And then Jericho comes out, and his entrance is like a wet fart. You see he's got the sad look on his face because the guitarist of his band is playing like crap, and nobody in the audience knows the words to his song without him singing backup, without him singing the vocals. And so that's how we started the match, and then it ends with a little bit of interference. MJF hits Jericho with the baseball bat, goes for the 1-2-3, gets the 1-2-3, but Jericho puts his foot on the ropes. And instead of having like a dusty finish, maybe we could pick this up on Wednesday, Dynamite. Instead, we make Aubrey look like an idiot, make MJF look completely useless, and we have another ref on the outside who came to break up the interference say that he saw Chris Jericho's leg on the ropes, so therefore you have to reverse the decision. Personally, I didn't know that's how wrestling worked. So, what's the point of having a ref at all? Bro, the ref's decision usually isn't overturned like that, especially by another referee. I've seen fights for less, and like I said, it makes Aubrey look like a chump. But most importantly, what's the point? What was the point of this? What was the point of having MJF beat Jericho 3 times? Just to have Jericho win in the end. What's the point of putting over the 50-year-old over the young up-and-comer, one of the greatest heels in the business today and the best thing that AEW has going, MJF? Why was it necessary to do that? I remember when it first happened, I thought MJF was going to win this, and I was glad that he didn't when Jericho first won. But now that I've really thought about it, I am upset that Jericho didn't lose, because what was the point of this? If you weren't going to lose, then what was the point? Did Jericho need to get his heat back from MJF? Did he need to get his heat back? MJF beat him 3 times. It could have just been over. And that could have been it. That could have been the end of the feud. But no, you had to have this extra thing. So yeah, Jericho lost 3 times, but at the end he won the feud. So what does MJF does not come off looking better for this. I don't see it. I don't see why why this match even needed to happen if this was going to be the ending of it. And it upsets me to no end because this was a great match. But the ending, the ending just left a really, really bad taste in my mouth. And I have to give it 2.5 stars. I just have to. It's right down the middle because, it's great. The story they told up until the ending was great, and then it went over like a complete dud. There was no reason that this should have happened. It was a mistake for Jericho to beat MJF. And speaking of mistakes, it was a mistake for CM Punk versus Darby Allin to not main event this pay per view. And I know. You're gonna say, well, what about the debut? What about that? What? No. You could have done it another time. Could have done it at another place. You didn't have to blow your load all at once. That's what you were gonna do. That's what you were gonna do. But this show revolved around Punk, his homecoming, return to the ring. It revolved around the making of a star, Darby Allin, solidifying him in the main event role. That's what this show was built around. That's what it should have been built around. It should have been focused on, and it should have been the main event. In saying that, this was a fantastic match. You know, CM Punk shows up wearing his Ring of Honor tights, and he looked great. You know, he looked great physically. Looks can be deceiving, as we'll see from his cardio performance. But this was a really good match. They told a good story of a young lion against an old veteran trying to prove himself, and young lion trying to solidify himself. You know, they played their characters perfectly with, you know, and even CM Punk, you know, making little mistakes from not being in the ring for so long. Darby Allin being a little bit too reckless from being young. You know, their characters, their roles, they played magnificently. And it was slow by design, but it needed to be, because for Darby Allin, it let him show a different side of himself. He's usually so fast, but you know, working in this slower kind of style, he really showed a new dimension to his character and how he can work within the ring. And CM Punk, obviously, needed to work slower for, you know, being his first match back in 7.5 years, but he still remembered the psychology and how to build towards the match. You know, when they hit the GTS and then Darby fell to the outside because Punk was too close to the ropes, you know, that was great. And then you think, you know, at the end of the match, it comes up, you know, CM Punk hits another go to sleep, 1, 2, 3. Was there ever any doubt? But after the match is when the real moment happens, and would have been an amazing moment to end the show, which is Sting comes out. You know, you see Sting versus Punk, or you see Sting and Punk. They shake hands. I would love for that match to happen. Sting versus Punk would be amazing. You know, you have Sting versus Punk. They shake hands, and then Punk reaches down for Darby. And then, like, in this moment, you know, he reaches his hand out. He stands up. They shake hands. You know, you have Punk, Darby, and Sting. You know, these 3 generations. And you, in this moment, not only are you welcoming CM Punk back, but this is a coronation moment in a way for Darby Allin. You have solidified him as a main event player in AEW for the rest of his career, and as a star in wrestling in this moment. You've done it. This is how you build a star. And I honestly think it should have ended that way. Because if you want to say, you know, that AEW is the future, you want to be ending things like that. You want to make the emphasis the future. But all in all, this match was perfect. 5 out of 5. I have no qualms against it. From the moment these two sat across the ring from each other, that's all you needed. I'll tell you something that wasn't perfect. From the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. QT Marshall versus No BS Paul White. No BS. This was some BS. So, you know, I remember interviews before Paul White joined the company, or as he was joining the company, you know, that he wasn't there to mark his spot, that he was there to put over young talent, you know, help him grow, help him develop. How? By squashing them in 2 minutes? You know, and I knew this was going to happen too. When QT and the Factory came out and they were charging to the ring and they were just looking livid, on a whole nother level of pissed. I was like, ooh, this is not gonna be a good night for QT. And then here comes Big Show looking like a giant Power Ranger to fight some putty monsters. I did. It wasn't good. It's bad. It's a bad match. Oh, I can understand. You want to put some time in between. But did this do anything from anybody? Do anything from anybody? Really? Put over the 49-year-old over the young lion. QT, QT deserve this. Half star. Forget it. After that was our main event, and I'll tell you before we start, I respect. No, I don't like it. I respect Kenny Omega for playing elite level politics, playing Triple H level politics to get himself main evented on CM Punk's show. He's like, nope, title goes on last. I go on last. Elite business goes on last. And he got it. And that's what happened. A night where it wasn't about him. It wasn't about Daniel Bryan. It wasn't about Bryan Danielson. It wasn't about Adam Cole. It wasn't about Elite Business. It was about Punk. And no, they didn't care. That was about me. So, this was an alright match. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I especially at the beginning, I was like, I didn't think it was gonna turn out very well because they had this spot where Don Callis is distracting the ref while Kenny puts Christian through a chair or through a table. I'm like, okay, like he's distracting him. But then they like set up another table and they're gonna put him through that one right in front of the ref, and I'm just like, did Kenny put together that spot? Because that made no sense. That made no sense. And I think Kenny's like that sometimes. Is that something's lost when you forget that the moment is better than the moves, that the emotion is better than the match. But Kenny just likes a visual. Some people just like the visual, and even when it doesn't make any sense. But after that really weird spot, Kenny was forced to slow down for the most part. He worked as more of a natural heel while Christian was working as a babyface. He was cutting off momentum. He wasn't doing a lot of crazy high spots. He wasn't popping the crowd as much. And when Kenny works like this, and but still can like put his own flurry into it and his own style, I could see why people hype him up like they do. Back even when he was fighting Okada in those matches that were so-called classics, I didn't see it. And it's only in times like this when he really slows down and works a different style that I'm like, okay, Kenny Omega is one of the greatest to do it today. So there's a spot where the table that they had set up earlier, Christian takes him through, and Christian almost impales himself on part of the table. Like, that would have not been good. That would have not been a memorable way to end the show. So, but Gallows comes out. I'm glad Gallows comes out and he messes up the interference. So you think like Christian might just win it, but with no interference, Kenny hits the one winged angel off the top rope and wins. And like I said, these guys had a really good match. And I thought it was main event worthy. I just don't think it was their main event. I give it 4 out of 5. I just can't stand by it. That should have been the main event. But using their logic for a second, afterwards, this is why they main evented. Kenny gets on the mic, says he's the best. Nobody can beat him. And, you're waiting, you're expecting to hear something. And you're waiting and you're expecting to hear something. And then, the lights go out. And who comes out? You're expecting maybe Daniel Bryan, but no, it's Adam Cole, baby. So, we have Adam Cole come out. You don't know what he's gonna do. If you know the history of the independents, you know that there's business between the Elite and Adam Cole. He used to be a member of the Bullet Club, and and it looks like he's still on Team Elite because he super kicks Jungle Boy, and they go into hug, and then you think, oh, that's gonna be the fade to black, but nope. Here out comes Daniel Bryan to some of the worst entrance music I've heard in a long, long time. Man, that entrance music is bad. Like it sounds like a generic version of Booker T's music when he first, came to WWE. It with a CD ripped quality version of, Flight of the Valkyrie. Nothing about it sounds good, and I wonder to myself, like, is that Brian Danielson's decision to make? Or was that Tony Khan's decision? Like, whoever made that decision, you should either go back to the drawing board or go and get the final countdown because that just didn't work. That was not the business. Not good. But Brian comes out, looking like he just came from tucking the kids into bed, and he's like, "Oh, am I supposed to be wrestling tonight?" Looking great. The crowd's going completely insane. And that's how we close out the show with a little brawl. Daniel Bryan and the Jurassic Express and Cage getting beat down on the Elite. So, the show. Was it good? Yes, it was good. All in all, I would have to give it a B plus because it was a good show. I enjoyed it a whole lot. And there are parts that, the moments that can't take away from the rest of it. Like the sum of, but when you start looking at the bigger picture, it was not an elite type of show, upper echelon type of show. It was not a perfect show. You look at some of the endings to certain matches. The decisions to even have some matches on the card, like the QT Marshall Paul White match. The decision to have Jericho go over MJF. The decision to have um, Paul White go over QT Marshall. The decision to not have CM Punk main event. And you can say, well, we had all these plans to debut all these people, and yeah, that's fine, great, and dandy. But did you blow their wad too early? They still have TV to build for and other shows to promote. And did they blow it all at once when they didn't have to? Guess we'll figure that out for the time, going into the future. But in the moment, they made the show memorable. They made it a big show. They made it had a big show feel, and it's a good show. You know, uh, maybe maybe my rating wouldn't be as high as a B plus if there wouldn't have been the extra pop at the end with Daniel Bryan. Who knows? But I did enjoy the show. But perfect.